we are talking Little Necro Red. Now this is actually directed and written by two guys whose names I'm probably going to butcher, but I will attempt to say, and that is Guillermo del Santi and Tizana Michela. So apologies if I have butchered those names. And I will give a shout out to another viewer who commented on my Hotel Inferno 3 movie review, who actually turned me on to this movie. Now, this is produced by a company called NECRO, which is basically produces low budget but extraordinarily gory movies. They did Hotel Inferno 3, and according to Naz, and to be fair, many other people, after doing some research on this one, this is considered the best movie that they have produced, at least by a lot of people. Now, if you have watched my Hotel Inferno 3 movie, you would have seen that I'd said it was particularly gory, very, very creative in its practical effects, but had really no story to it. This movie, I think, tries to have a little bit of both, or a lot of gore and some story, let me put it like that. And maybe this is why it's considered to be the one of the better movies. So what is this movie all about, you might be saying? So it really has two concurrent storylines. The kind of the dialogue-driven one, I suppose, focuses on this woman who is wanting to be some type of an investigator, and she is tasked by this journalist who's like an online journalist to try and investigate a case of this missing girl. Now, the reason why this woman is selected specifically is because she's actually friends with this missing girl's mother, or at least she used to be friends. And in trying to kind of find this girl, she kind of reconnects with the mother, who seems a little bit on edge, let's just say, and she's trying to investigate what has happened to this missing girl. And there seems to be evidence that points that she's got involved in some type of weird cult, which brings us on to this kind of secondary plot line where there is this odd cult, I don't know how best to describe this, that seem to be living in these caves, and they are doing some bizarre things. They're led by this kind of like this 80-year-old woman, and they're killing people, random people, and doing some type of occult business with them, possessing them, all sorts of stuff like that. It's not entirely clear what's going on, I won't lie to you, but there you go. So shout out to Naz who turned me on to this one, like I say. So I'm going to come at this slightly differently to a regular review. I'm not going to kind of go into positives and negatives, more just going to give my thoughts on it, because it's kind of a hard film to really review it in a lot of ways, because it would be real short, because there's lots of gore, very little storyline. That's pretty much the review. So unlike the Hotel Inferno 3, I feel this one at least does have an attempt at some narrative, which I really felt was lacking from the Hotel Inferno 3 movie. Now, the reason why I'm coming at this a little differently is because a few people have commented on that video, oh, it doesn't matter about story, just because there's loads of kind of cool, gory effects, and that's kind of what we want to watch. So, if that is the case, this is the perfect movie. And I often see things like people commenting, what's your favourite kill in Friday the 13th, and what's your favourite, bloody moment in Nightmare on Elm Street, or something like that. And this is a kind of a movie that really just focuses on those moments. So if that's what you want from a film, from a horror film, this movie is chock full of it, and you're going to have a whale of a time. You're going to have a blast, because it's just gore shot after gore shot after gore shot. So I feel this is going to be one of those films which is going to be lauded by some, and other people are just going to kind of like trash it for having real no plot, to be honest. But I'm going to try and commit this in a way which it looks at both of those things and be a bit more balanced. I'm going to attempt it anyway. So what does work? So there is more plot to this one. There's no kind of getting around it. And unlike, say, the Hotel Inferno series, which is more of a fantasy movie with kind of like, monsters and things, this is more of a, humans and kind of, or at least mutants, mutant humans, I suppose, but nonetheless, more human-ish characters, and kind of like, deaths and things like that. So I would say this one feels more gory than the Hotel Inferno 3 movie. Now, I've not seen the original two, so I can't speak to the first two, but this to me is possibly one of the most gory films I've seen. And the gore is done in OTT fashion with practical effects. It looks like they're using offal in some shots of it. It's looking very kind of like particularly kind of gory. It still does have that cartoonish kind of quality, and I want to kind of reference movies like Peter Jackson's Bad Taste and then Sam Raimi's Evil Dead, because I feel that they are kind of early movies in you know, low budget films where the director kind of went quite, you know, quite heavy on the gore, not to the degree of this, even Bad Taste to be fair, but you know, early in their career, low budget, so I think it's a comparable movie. The difference I would say between Bad Taste and Evil Dead compared to this movie, and probably other ones in the NECRO catalogue, is that in films like Bad Taste and Evil Dead, you actually had character work, and you had more of a clear narrative, and that is still what is missing with this movie. Even though this film does have a story within it, and this is speculation on my part, I think that the story elements in regards to these this investigation was filmed after the fact, and it looks like it was done in reshoots, because it has British actors in it, and compared to the Italian people from the gory scenes, and you never see them on screen at the same time. So it looks like they've added scenes. At least this is how I think it's happened. They've added scenes later on to try and give this movie some narrative, because otherwise it was just a bunch of kind of gory scenes. And that's, I think, is what has happened. So the movie really is split in regards to its runtime. Now, on one hand, we get dialogue scenes, and it's just really two women talking in an apartment for the majority of this, and you don't really get any characterization. The characters aren't really kind of set up at all. We don't even know what this world is that we're living in. We see some kind of news clippings where we hear that, oh, there's some type of like martial law, and there's Italian terrorists all over the place, but we know nothing about this world. It just doesn't bother to kind of like go into any type of like world building. It's just this like weird sort of like oppressive society that it doesn't bother to tell us anything about, and it doesn't bother to set up these characters. They go straight in. This girl goes, "Oh, I'm an investigator," blah, you know, she's given this task straight away without ever building her character up. And I got the impression here that, I mean, even if whether it was done in reshots or whether it was, I think it's irrelevant, that these guys just want to get some gory shots. That's all they're interested in doing. But they felt like, oh, we've got to try and have some type of semblance of a plot. So they've kind of done the bare minimum here. And because we don't know really anything about our two sort of characters, our two kind of female characters, and we see another guy played by Peter Cosgrove, who is like the guy, the investigator on the internet and stuff like that. I don't know, it just rings really kind of hollow to me, because it's yes, there's a semblance of a story, but it's so rushed and kind of and is such an odds with the rest of the story. Now, the rest of the story, if we can call it a story, is just gore shots after gore shots. It's these kind of like these minions killing people and then kind of somehow bringing them back for the dead, and I don't really know what's kind of going on with them. So story-wise, yeah, there's an attempt to have one, but I gotta be honest with you, it was just a mess. So yes, Hotel Inferno really didn't have any story. This one had some dialogue. It had a bit more of a kind of a plot, but it was handled in such a poor way. It almost would have been better off at not having it in an odd sense. But I applaud the attempt at least to have some dialogue, because the Hotel Inferno 3 was just, as I say, just one guy just swearing at nothing, and lots of gore. So this one, the gore shots are very, very effectively done. Like I said, they're still kind of like a wink and a nod. They're not entirely kind of like realistic, but they certainly are very gruesome. And again, I'll use the kind of the comparison to Bad Taste of Everything. They kind of feel like that, but more, I would say, more graphic than them by a long kind of stretch. And I gotta say, I think they use a lot of practical effects. I think that they look like they've used real maggots, probably real offal and things like this to give it, you know, a really kind of like gruesome look. And there are some instances where they've accentuated the gore with a little bit of visual effects, but wisely what they've done is they've not gone overboard with the kind of the VFX and used it rather sparingly just to kind of enhance, like giving the guy like a wider smile or kind of narrowing someone's head just a smidge so it looks weird but doesn't look overpowering or look too much like a digital effect. So I think that was quite good on their part. So this film, I don't think is going to change anyone's mind one way or the other. If you like super gory stuff, you're going to love this because it's just like, it's filled with it. It's possibly one of the most, if not the most violent film I've seen. I would say this is more violent than the Hotel Inferno because the violence is inflicted more on people rather than kind of monsters, which is what the Hotel Inferno 3 is. So to me, that kind of gives it more of a kind of a gory edge to it, so to speak. And there's lots of it. You know, it's all the way through the movie peppered with these kind of weird dialogue scenes. And I didn't necessarily think the acting was bad for those scenes, but it was just that the characters were so barely written that we didn't know anything about them. But they seem like two completely different films. So this is a real hard film to honestly kind of score, because you're going to love these films if you like the gory goodness. Yeah, it's not me saying it hasn't got a very good story. It's not going to care. You're not going to care because you're just going to want to watch this movie for the kind of the effects and things like this. I somehow think that it kind of having a dialogue does help, but it was so poor. It was those scenes were so poorly kind of filmed and written. I honestly don't know if I can give it any extra points for that. So to be honest with you, although I think there's more to this film than the Hotel Inferno 3, I don't know if it's better because of it. You know, I prefer a narrative. I like to have characters that I can kind of grasp onto. And yeah, I enjoy the kind of gory shots. And one of the comments I said, I noticed in the Hotel Inferno 3 movie was, oh, who cares about plot and story when you've just got all this great gore? But that's what an effects reel is. You know, you can watch an effects reel and that will have that. But when you watch a film, you want a story. You want you want to be told a story or watch a narrative. And this one doesn't do that either. It doesn't do it in a different way. It attempts to do it, but the story here is so just like throwaway. I would like to see these guys reined in a little bit and work with other writers. And I think they would do a better film, a more balanced film, because you can still have gory stuff, but have a better story, have a little bit more of a narrative, and kind of rein in the kind of like you can still have it as gory films, but just, you know, put it in a story, an actual story. 4 out of 10. I feel like I've blathered on about this one. Have you seen it? Leave me a comment. I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.